I'm Charles Buzzard, the younger son of Dr. Robert Buzzard, the second president of Eastern. We moved here in 1933, and I started first grade in what was considered the lab school then. We didn't call it a lab school, it was the training school. And it was called the training school originally because everybody who was here learning to be a teacher had to do a semester of practice teaching in one of the grades to complete their college degree. So the students in the training school always had 2 or 3 extra teachers, these students, besides our master teacher in the class. And they helped us learn, helped those that were behind or needed help, and gave them a lot of individual attention. And I'm one of those students who got some individual attention because I didn't learn to read until the 3rd grade. And that's when the 3rd grade teacher went into my father and told him that I had been here for the 1st and 2nd grades and had not learned anything in those 2 grades. And that created quite an upheaval. It also classified me then as a slow learner. We would call him an LSD kid or a learning disabled student today. But we didn't put name tags on them. You would just learn. I had to work harder to get things done and learn. But every semester we would have new training teachers coming in from the Department of Education to work with us in each class. I think we were sort of hard on them at times because we knew tricks, or we played tricks on them just to see if we could fluster them. But that was part of learning to be a teacher, because if you went out into a classroom in a small town and the kids didn't respond, what did you do? Well, you remember that you had this pulled on you before in one of our training classes. We were in small classes. We had about 20 to 22 students in each class, moving from grade to grade. We had kids from the city. We had some farm kids who drove in every day. The parents brought them in. Of course, we didn't have school buses in those days. So your parent got you to school. And I always walked to and from school. I lived up on 907 7th Street, halfway to downtown. That's where we lived the entire time that I was here. It was a good basic education. We got it. We learned penmanship, we learned history, we learned everything. But we got a good, basic, rounded education. And that helped us as we went on into high school. High school now was up on the 2nd floor east end of Old Main at that time. And we had 4 rooms there, and the music department was up in the tower, 3rd floor of the tower of Old Main. We had a music band for high school, which met in the gymnasium at Pemberton Hall. I mean, the fascinating thing is, in that time, the girls that went here and lived in Pemberton Hall, they were locked in at 8 o'clock at night. On Saturday night, they could stay out to 11, but every other night, they had to be in at 8 o'clock. Yes, things have changed, changed a great deal. But that's not getting away from the lab school. Probably some of the famous, better memories I have of the lab school was the interaction between students in different grades. We were all close, and we all went out to recess at about the same time until the first 4 grades had recess at the same time, and then the other grades. But we didn't have a cafeteria, so we all went home for lunch, or you brought a brown bag and ate in the classroom. We had a fire drill every year. where the fire bell would ring and we'd all be marched outside, as you do even today or should have. Those were always good interruptions, as we thought, in classes. I'm trying to think of an instance of, oh, the other thing that we liked as kids going to the training school was when the college had a outstanding speaker or something, we all got out of class and we marched over to sit there and listen to these speakers come in. So your class routine was interrupted quite often. And that was always good because you got out of studying. So that's what was one of my favorite things. Oh, I graduated in 1945, received my draft notice the next day, and said I didn't want to be in the Army, so I went and enlisted in the Navy, and spent my first 3 years then in the Navy, came out of the Navy, came back here to college for 1 year, and found out that going to the college where your father is the president is not a good idea because the faculty wasn't quite sure how to grade you or anything. And so I left at that end and went to University of Iowa for my degree. It was first grade through high school, 12 years. No kindergarten at that time. I don't know why just people didn't think children should go to school until they were so old. And it was interesting that most of the class, I would say 60% of the class would continue on year after year. So we started out in the first grade. Most of us went to second, third, fourth, fifth, all the way through together. So you felt and built some real good friendships. I can remember, I think it was the 5th grade, that I broke my arm, my left arm, and my best friend fell and broke his right arm. And so we both ended up in class with both arms and would walk down the halls this way. So that was always, I thought, funny. We also had a time when one of the boys got very sick with meningitis or something, and we had a chief of a Native American Indian tribe come through to make a presentation at the college, and this chief went to his house to try to cheer him up, and did cheer him up, and he did recover, and came back and thought, that's the kind of community and what the teachers would help do for their students if they were ill or something. When this building was built as the new lab school, it was one of my father's greatest wishes to have a quality laboratory experience for the students and the teachers that were training to be teachers. And his philosophy had always been, we need to train good teachers to go to the small towns around us so that the children will get the best education they possibly can. And you have to have good teachers to do that. And he was very rewarded by having this building built and then named for him. He was very, very proud of that. And it was one of his great achievements in his life.